Hey, welcome back to the Level Traders YouTube channel. Today's video is about giving you a crash course in what monetary and fiscal policy is. Now, the reason for that is it's important to be aware of the connection between monetary and fiscal policy and the impact it has on the markets. And I'll show you shortly with some charts why I think it's important to understand this. So hopefully this won't be too onerous and I'll give you the quick and easy version. So let's get straight to it. So to start off with, what is monetary policy? So monetary policy is action that a country's central bank can influence how much money there is in an economy and how much it costs to borrow. Now, why is that important, you might think? Well, depending on how much money there is out there, some of that money will go into investing, into stock markets, into forex markets, into commodities. So it's important to understand how much money is out there based on what the central bank does. Now, central banks can have dual mandates. For example, the Fed has two responsibilities. It has the responsibility to foster economic conditions that achieve both stable prices and maximum sustainable unemployment. Now, the stable prices refers to inflation, which the Fed has set at 2%. That's their target. So how does a central bank control how much money there is in the economy? Well, they can do it in four ways. And I'll use the US Fed as the example in this case. So the first thing they can do, which we have on the screen in front of us, is setting the interest rate which banks can borrow from the central bank, known as the discount rate. The idea behind this is that if interest rates fall, then those banks will be able to lend more money out to companies and individuals, boosting the economy. Now, the reversal of that would be if interest rates rise, the central bank is trying to reduce the amount of money lent into the economy and actually reduce the money supply in the economy. Now, the second thing they can do is the reserve requirements. Now, these are portions of deposits that banks must hold in cash, either in their own vaults or with the Fed. Now, a decrease in reserve requirements increases money supply, as it allows banks to lend more money to companies and businesses. And it's the opposite if they ask for more money to be held in reserve. So that locks up more funds with the central bank, reducing the money supply in the wider economy. Then we have interest on reserves. This is interest on excess reserves held with the Fed. Remember that the Fed requires banks to hold a portion of their deposits with the central bank? Well, this is the extra cash that banks hold with the central bank. The Fed pays interest to the banks for this. Now, if the Fed wanted banks to lend more, the Fed can reduce the interest rate on those reserves, excess reserves. That way, if there's less interest to be held on the reserves, there's less incentive for banks to help hold that money with the Fed. They may as well lend that out and earn some more interest. And it's the reverse. If they increase the interest on reserves, there's more incentive for banks to hold excess cash with the Fed instead of lending that out. Then we have open market operations. So this is the fourth tool that the central bank has. So this is where the Fed buys and sells US treasuries on the open market in order to control money supply. If the Fed buys treasuries from banks in exchange for cash, it's increasing money supply, versus if it sells treasuries to try and reduce money supply, i.e. it tries to bring cash back into the central bank. Now, I said there were four tools, but what about if interest rates are already near zero? And that happened during the financial crisis. So there's actually a fifth tool, which is known as quantitative easing. So once the interest rates are cut to the point where you can't reduce them anymore, what else can the Fed do? So this is where the Fed buys large amounts of longer term debt like US treasuries and other types like mortgage-backed securities. And more recently, the Fed has announced that they'll start buying corporate bonds, not just government bonds, in exchange for cash. And they do this every month, buying billions and billions of dollars each month. And this is known as quantitative easing. And the idea is to flood the market with more cash. So, why does monetary policy matter? Why do we care about it as traders? Well, each time there has been a crash in the stock market, the Fed has slashed rates. Here I've got a chart of the S&P 500, and you'll see 3 examples where the Fed has cut rates. You had a cut in 2003 as the Fed tried to spur economic growth. Then, following the financial crisis, rates were slashed further to near zero, which happened again in 2020, driven by the pandemic-led recession. You can see the relationship between the S&P 500 and the rate the Fed sets. Every time rates are slashed lower, the S&P 500 makes a cyclical low. Now, interest rates being cut wasn't the only thing the Fed did to support financial markets. The Fed announced quantitative easing for the first time at the end of 2008. This was to counter the financial crisis. Now, the Fed announced $500 billion worth of purchases in mortgage-backed securities over several quarters. And you can see what it did to the markets, because 6 months later, 2009, the market bottomed, and it hasn't looked back since. So it shows how the Fed has been supporting not just the economy, but also the stock market. QE1 was terminated at the end of March in 2010, but this didn't last long, because QE2 was announced in November 2010, with the Fed purchasing an additional $600 billion in longer-term treasuries at a pace of $75 billion a month. Then we had Operation Twist in September 2011. This is where the Fed bought longer-term debt and sold shorter-term debt maturing in 3 years or less. The idea here was to put downward pressure on long-term interest rates. QE2 ended in June 2012, but then QE3 started in 2012, later that year, buying another $40 billion in mortgage-backed securities and $85 billion of longer-term debt. There was even talk of reducing QE in mid-2013, which did begin at the end of 2013, and QE3 ultimately ended in October 2014. In 2017, the Fed announced plans of balance sheet normalization, i.e. this meant where the Fed started to reverse QE and sell treasuries for cash. However, in 2020, the Fed decided to go all in again to counter the pandemic that started in March 2020. The central bank would purchase $500 billion in US treasuries and $200 billion in mortgage-backed securities over several months. Without the massive support from the US central bank, you have to wonder if the S&P 500 would be anywhere near where it is today. The expansion in credit by the Fed, as it expands its own balance sheet, has been a major driver since the financial crisis, going way back to 2008. Let me now show you how the Fed's balance sheet has evolved over time. This is a chart of the Fed balance sheet against the S&P 500. The red line is the S&P 500, whilst the blue line is the total assets on the Fed balance sheet. Look at how both the S&P 500 and the Fed balance sheet trended up for years as the balance grew. You then had the balance sheet flatlining, which saw a few wobbles in the S&P 500 during that time. But once again, the spike in the Fed balance sheet in 2020 saw the S&P 500 rebound sharply. There is no question the liquidity injection from the Fed is finding its way into the S&P 500. And that is a major factor, both for traders and investors, that they need to take into account when gauging the overall trend of the market. What the Fed is doing with monetary policy should be of great interest to not just you and I, but to all good traders and investors. So let's now switch topic to fiscal policy. So fiscal policy refers to the use of government spending and tax policies to influence economic growth. Now, when it comes to fiscal policy, there are 2 elements that the government can influence: taxes and government spending. Taxes can be cut to boost consumer spending by reducing, say, personal tax or VAT. Reducing capital gains influence individuals to increase investment, while reducing corporation tax will boost company profits after tax, which can lead to companies increasing wages or paying out bigger dividends to shareholders. Alternatively, if the consumer doesn't want to spend, the government can. Now the government can spend on areas like healthcare, military, education, or they can go old school, like the US has recently, where Joe Biden has announced a massive infrastructure plan aiming to spend money on building roads, bridges, hospitals. That's the kind of bill that they're looking to pass. This gives a boost to jobs because it increases GDP. For those that want to know more about GDP, check out my Intro to Fundamentals video where I cover this in more detail. Usually increased government spending will result in the government borrowing more money or raising taxes to pay for it. And that's exactly what the US has kind of recently outlined. So here's the headline where Biden's plan was first announced. And the idea is that taxes will be increased to pay for it. Another example of fiscal policy is the UK's furlough scheme. Here's a headline that came out recently. The furlough scheme effectively means the government are going to subsidise a large chunk of the employees' wages. The aim of the furlough scheme was to avoid businesses laying off people and making unemployment spike. So there you have it, a crash course in monetary and fiscal policy and how it impacts the markets. I hope you found this useful. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future content. Thanks again for watching. Until next time, take care folks.